Hello and welcome back to Blow Up the Team. Jeremy here today. We're going to be going through the Miami Dolphins draft and talking a little bit about how they did. I've got Matt here with me today.
What's up?
Oh, he actually gave me a good one this one. Yeah.
Yeah, really good. I said, what's up? I'm really
Yeah,
impressed
you
with
had
myself.
energy. You had energy. You know, he's like, hey. Huh?
Well, yeah, I spent today sitting in my car and then my mom's car for combined total of like 6 hours of the day. I drove my sister to physical therapy and then I drove her to practice, and her softball practice that took 5 hours in between the driving and the sitting there.
That
So
sounds like a lot of fun.
I've done nothing. And then in between that, I took a nap. I fell asleep for like 2 straight hours. I woke up and I didn't remember where I was because I was that tired. I don't know why.
Alrighty.
So,
Well, before we go ahead and get into this video, I'm just going to quickly say any video clips that I show that are not straight from the ESPN draft page are going to be linked in the description down below, so go ahead and make sure to check that out. But without further ado, now that Matt has shared his softball story, let's go ahead and get into the video.
yeah, literally softball story.
It
That's
was
a lot of
integral.
fun.
It was integral.
It
It
was
needed to be
integral.
out there.
Listen, I'm like, my parents have been paying me because they don't want, because my mom desperately does not want me working at the pizzeria that I work at. I've spent like, I've actually been reading this fucking book in 3 days. I'm like 140 pages in, which isn't a lot, but like, because like I definitely read that amount in like a single day. But it's nice. It's giving me an excuse to do something other than sit in front of this computer that I'm always at.
Man,
You know?
I wish. I spend all day staring at Excel spreadsheets. I
Yeah.
spent
Well, whose
another.
fault is that?
Hey, you know what? I spent another 5 hours today staring at spreadsheets, man. So get off my back.
My mom works in corporate America. She just spends it's all Excel spreadsheets.
Uh,
Your life is all Excel spreadsheets. I hope you're ready.
yeah, we're gonna figure it out, man. Anyways, Dolphins. Let's talk a little bit about the 2019 Dolphins before we go ahead and talk about their draft picks this year. They went 5-11, which not a great season, but when you consider the fact that I was reading an article before the season started that they were projected to have like some pretty high odds to go 0-16 this season, suddenly 5-11 doesn't look that bad. Um, I would say there was a little bit of Fitz magic that took place, and it kind of made the season interesting. Which I mean, again, this team didn't exactly have high expectations before, so kind of just anything to make it an interesting season is a win for Dolphins fans out there. You want to take a look at the offense real quick? They were 27th in yards per game. They were 12th in passing yards, and I would say with a defense that bad, you kind of had to be 12th in passing yards if you wanted to do anything, because the defense, as we'll talk about in a second, was absolutely atrocious. And they were dead last in rushing yards, which I'm not going to blame fully on the talent on the roster. Now, they didn't exactly have great talent, don't get me wrong. The offensive line was a bit shoddy, and they didn't exactly have a fantastic run game. But again, when you're down that often, it's kind of hard to be able to run the football. They were 27th in points per game, so they were kind of just you know what? 5 wins, 27th points per game. You got to take that, and you gotta just take your wins and you move on. Some offseason notes: they did sign Eric Flowers to a 3-year deal to start at left guard. Ted Karras to start at the center, as well as signing Jordan Howard to be running back 1 and trading a 5th-round pick for Matt Breida to be running back 2. So that creates a solid running back core behind a revamped offensive line. So hopefully they'll be able to be a little bit more effective than last in the league in rushing yards this season, and be able to protect their quarterbacks a little bit more. I say quarterbacks because I mean there was Josh Rosen on this team that got some playing time last year. Then they went to Fitzpatrick, and then obviously they had the big QB pickup in the draft, which we'll talk about in a second. So you got to be able to block for those guys.
You know, I was
Next,
very disappointed in
uh,
Fitzmagic this time around. Just gotta throw it out there. Like, who normally gets that, 2 or 3, big wins, and then you know, everyone remembers, oh yeah, he's on a shit team, and the shit team performs like shit. I was very disappointed this time around.
well, to be fair to him,
Oh, it had nothing to do with him. Nothing to, no, no, not me flaming him. It's everything to do with the fact he had no talent around him, and
well, not even that. He
nothing.
didn't start in the beginning of the season. It was Josh Rosen, and then when Josh Rosen eventually they traded a 2nd-round pick for Josh
Oh,
Rosen.
that's true. That's
They
true.
traded a 2nd-round pick for Josh Rosen, and he was supposed to be I don't know if he was supposed to be like the future, but he was supposed to be a better option, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was supposed to be his backup, and then he lost the job to Fitzmagic. Um, and the team honestly looked different after that, if I'm honest. Like, it just felt like a completely different football team. They were playing with a little bit more passion, it felt like. This is not a, it's supposed to be a draft video, but I'm just putting it out there. I don't know what it is about Fitzpatrick, but he tends to take these I'm not going to say terrible teams, but far below average teams, and just they win games they're not supposed to win. They stay in games they're not supposed to stay in. Like, it's just an interesting dynamic that happens there. Anyways, onto the defense. This is where the team was especially bad. 30th in yards allowed, 25th in passing yards allowed, 27th in rushing yards allowed, and they were, again, dead last, this time in points allowed per game. So, again, like I said earlier, you give up that many points that often, that early, you're going to have to throw the football, you're going to have to try to make some things happen. And I think that definitely impacted their offense, because they do have, some, at least some spurts of talent on their offense. And I think that they could have been a little bit more well balanced than they were if they didn't have literally the worst defense when it came to scoring in the league. Now, some changes in the offseason. They signed Byron Jones from the Cowboys to be on a 5-year deal, actually, to start at corner, as well as signing Kyle Van Noy from New England to start at middle linebacker, and Emmanuel Agba to start at linebacker. So they're trying. They didn't necessarily make a huge splash in the offseason, signing guys in free agency, but I don't know how many guys are looking to go to Miami. I don't know how many guys that's their first pick. So I don't know how
Yeah.
much of that is the state of the franchise as opposed to not trying. But they did make 11 draft picks this season, so they're making an effort to get younger and try to build towards the future. So Dolphins fans, you at least have a young core that you can kind of look towards and hope will lead you into the brighter days. To start with some of those draft picks. Let's look at the first pick. I believe it was something like pick number 5 in the draft. Tua Tagovailoa, quarterback out of Alabama. If you didn't know, although I'm sure probably everybody watching this knows who he is. Um, Now he is left-handed, and they have a mixed history of left-handed quarterbacks in the league. They haven't always been the most successful. They haven't always panned out. However, he does just looking at him as an overall prospect, he tends to have great field vision. He's accurate, and he has the athletic ability to make plays with his legs, barring injury, I'll say, because he did struggle a little bit with injuries last season. And you always get a little bit worried when kind of athletic guys like that make a lot of plays with their legs show some lower body injuries. I don't remember exactly what his injury was, but I do remember it being lower body. So there's a little bit of stress there. But he's got good release, a quick release and good arm strength. And he's showed time and time again he's not afraid of the moment. He can perform under pressure. So, that's an intangible thing that you can't really teach. And some guys have it, some guys don't. Him being able to perform under pressure is something that I really like. Now, this is not something that I necessarily would have gone as far to say. But this is quoted from Steve Wench from ESPN. He does a lot of the kind of draft recaps for players. He says, and I quote, he compares favorably to Drew Brees. I don't know that I would say he's as surgically precise as Drew Brees is and is going to be able to lead an offense the way that Drew Brees does. I don't know that I necessarily completely agree with the comparison, but there's definitely a lot of high talk about this guy. And you're hoping that he's just going to be the future of your franchise. You're hoping he stays healthy and you can build the team around him. And kind of work towards a solid future for the team. So I think that he's a lot more likely to be the long-term answer than Josh Rosen or Fitzpatrick are. So hopefully you've gotten a guy here that can be that kind of franchise quarterback going forward. Next up, we offensive tackle out of USC. We've got Austin Jackson. He's strong enough to create a push in run blocking, and he has the potential to develop into a good pass blocker. He's quick enough off the ball and has the length to handle speed edge rushers. He's also kind of good at using his hands to recover and stay in position, but overall, he seemed to be a little bit inconsistent from what I was reading. Now, we did talk about this offensive line needing to get beefed up. He is currently slated to start at left tackle day one. So you've gone out and you've gotten yourself pretty much an entire new offensive line between free agency and this second pick here in the draft. So 4 of the 5 players are just completely new on the offensive line. Hopefully they'll be able to perform better than what they saw last year. But I think that this pick, I think I like it. It'll give them a solid guy on the edge. They needed it, and I think they went out and they got it. Now this is the name here that I stress.
Oh,
If you haven't followed this channel, you haven't watched this channel before, I struggle with names. We got Noah Igbinogany. How'd I do?
I think that's what we decided on. So
Cornerback out
I
of
think,
Auburn is all that.
I think you did okay.
We're just gonna roll past that. Cornerback out of Auburn. He's got good size and he's got great speed. And he's a tough press man corner and he does a good job at interrupting routes. He's better in man than zone, and he didn't have any interception in his 26 starts, despite formerly being a receiver. So that's a little bit troublesome. They say that, and then it almost looks like a pick right there, but that was the notes that I read, so that's a little bit interesting. Um, but he's a solid tackler, and he attacks and run defense well. And he's currently listed as a backup to Byron Jones, but I wouldn't be surprised to see him getting playing time in nickel sets or especially dime sets. I would think that he would be on the field, so he'll definitely see. I would expect him to definitely see the field at some point this season. And he's a young guy that I think that could definitely develop and become a long time impactful player for this team. As long as, of course, he's got to stay healthy. But so next up, we've got Robert Hunt, offensive guard out of Louisiana. He starts all over the offensive line, and he shows a lot of versatility. He's got flashes of power and pass protection. He can overwhelm defenders in the run game. His size and arm length projects him to be a better guard than tackle the next level long term. But that being said, he's currently slated at starting at right tackle, where he started 21 games in college. So that's an entirely new offensive line now between the first 4 picks in the draft as well as what you did in the offseason. That's a completely new offensive line. So it'll be interesting to see how the unit meshes together, but hopefully it'll be an improvement over what they had last year, be able to provide some protection for in the immediate Fitzpatrick, but like more long term. It's a pretty young line as well, and hopefully they'll be able to protect for Tua. Next up, you got Raekwon Davis, defensive tackle out of Alabama. He's and I quote, highly gifted and scheme versatile defensive lineman. He's physically gifted and he's effective in run defense with the strength to control blockers. He doesn't project it to be an elite pass rusher necessarily, but he works hard and he tends to get pressure when quote unquote turned loose. He's technically listed as backup nose tackle, but being that versatile and that gifted, I think he would definitely find a way to see the field this season, whether that's end or tackle. When you have a guy that's just that overall talented, they find a way to get him involved. They find a way to get him on the field, and I definitely think that will be the case here. And I think that he's versatile enough for the long term. He'll definitely find a home on this defense, which was already struggling to begin with and needed just overall talent. So I definitely like this pickup here. Next up, we got Brandon Jones, safety out of Texas. He's a good tackler, and he is willing to make the play and run support. And he tends to be able to separate receivers from the ball when he's in coverage. But he isn't quite fast enough and doesn't have the instincts to truly play center field as a safety. He's not necessarily a ball hawk, but he's still capable of making a play on the ball. But the real talent that he's shown is in the return game, the punt return game. I think they said that he averaged like 10 or 11 yards for punt return, which, I mean, depending on how many returns that is, like, it means very many different things. But they specifically noted him as being a notable punt returner. So it looks like they've gone out, even though he's only technically listed as a third string free safety. He should be able to make a special teams impact for this team, which is, we always talk about all 3 facets of the game, and I think that being able to go out and get somebody that will be that impact player for you on special teams, be that kind of spark plug, help flip the field position a bit, is always something that you're going to be looking for. Next up, we got Solomon Kindley, offensive guard out of Georgia. He's got great size. He was quote listed as I believe monstrous. Is that the word massive guard, with below average arm length is the quote from ESPN. He's strong in run blocking, but he loses blocks too early, and he often gets upended and winds up on the ground, which is not necessarily something that you're looking for from your offensive lineman. He's got good awareness, but he isn't at his best in pass protection. Now he does have the flexibility to start at either guard spot, but I don't think that he projects the overall talent to really make an impact necessarily this season. He is listed as a fourth string left guard, and I think that this is the only pick as I was kind of going through early in the fourth round. I think that this is the only pick I feel like they truly really missed on. Now, obviously, I hope I'm wrong, and I hope he, does perform better than I'm expecting. But I do think that they could have found a uh, better talent at this point in the draft. Next up, we got Jason Strowbridge, defensive end out of North Carolina. He's not the ideal physical build for a defensive line. His arms look to be a bit short for defensive tackle, and especially short for defensive end, but he's also a bit leaner than defensive tackle normally is, but also a bit slower than the average defensive end. But all that being said, he has shown impressive strength, and he has the ability to get at the quarterback. He shows potential upside as an interior pass rusher, and he tracks the ball well in run defense, as well as being able to slip blocks. He's currently listed as a third string defensive end, but with some training at an NFL level, if he puts on some size, I would say that he could become a defensive tackle. The other thing to note here is that things like arm length and size, they're not everything. So if you can, maybe your arms are a bit shorter than average, but if you just have a knack for getting at the quarterback, you're going to find a home. So if you can continue to just flat out be productive at the next level, suddenly those things like arm length is not going to necessarily be the most important thing in the world. Next up, they went with another defensive end, this one out of Boise State, Curtis Weaver. He's not a speed guy. He lacks the first step quickness as well as the closing speed, but he is effective at using his hands at the line, and he also shows glimpses of an inside move to rush the passer. He's disruptive in run defense and can slip blocks to get into the backfield, and he gets his hands inside and can control blockers at the line. He's currently listed as a third string linebacker, but I think he shows enough upside on the line at a defensive end spot that we could see them move him back to that position within the next few seasons, where I think that he could produce, especially on, again, a defense that needed help. I think that just having overall talented guys on the roster, guys they'll find a way to make it work, and I think that he fits the bill here, even though it is a little bit later in the draft. Next up, we've got I said Curtis Weaver, excuse me. Now we got Blake Ferguson, long snapper out of LSU. Now, we're not going to talk about this pick for too long. I don't know much about a long snapping position, but he is brothers with Reed Ferguson, the Bills long snapper. And he will be the long snapper for the Dolphins this season, and they needed one, so they got one. Special team needs love too, and if he's going to be able to do his job and make sure that he gets those snaps where he needs them, and can it'll help your kick game, it'll help your punt game, everything. So as long as he stays healthy, starting long snapper in the 6th round is not a bad pick. Last pick in the draft for them is Malcolm Perry, wide receiver out of Navy. Now, he was originally a quarterback, and he played a quarterback last season, but he's going to have to move to either wide receiver or running back to be able to play at the next level, and he didn't necessarily have a great combine for that. Now, I said he was a quarterback, but now I'm also going to say he ran for 2,000 yards for Navy last season in a very run-heavy scheme. And there was quotes saying that you should watch his highlights before you count him out. He plays faster than combine speed and is elusive in space. I personally went and watched one of his highlight videos, and I definitely see the potential, but he's definitely going to need time. That's not necessarily something that he can just make that transition and necessarily be an effective player right away. But he did look to be a little bit elusive in space, and I didn't look up what his combine speed was, but he actually looked like he was playing fairly fast as compared to the other guys that he was playing with. So it'll be interesting to see if he can make that transition. We've seen other guys make it. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. He was drafted, I think, with the 32nd pick in the 7th round. So even me just saying that, I think that he has some upside. It's just going to take some time. Even though it's a project piece, with the toughness and potential that he's shown, I think that's more hope than a lot of guys have late in this draft. So for what that's worth, having guys that you finding guys that late in the seventh round that you think that you could genuinely develop over time is not always something that you're able to find. So, all right, well that is all their draft picks. You have any notes, Matt? Anything that you want to bring up, talk about, mention?
Not in particular, really. I think that they obviously Dolphins were pretty dreadful, and like it's really easy to just count them out. But I think they made enough. They made lots and lots of picks. Like I don't know how many teams normally get 11 picks in a draft, but they got like a lot of good picks. They're building for the future. I think overall is a pretty good draft from basically all standpoints. Because and it's really, I guess it's also easy for them to have a good draft because they literally need everything. So but they got the big tank bowl prize. Well, they got one of the tank bowl prizes and Tua Tua. Let's say Tua
Yeah, there you go, Tua.
Tagovailoa. Jesus. Um, so and they got a lot of other pieces as well. So I think overall they drafted really well.
Yeah, so I agree. I think I'm gonna probably give them. I think I'm gonna go ahead and give them an A minus. I think that they hit a lot of the needs that they needed. I don't think that they necessarily had like a perfect draft. Like I said, I especially think they did miss that one pick that they made in the fourth round. I just feel like they could have maybe found a little bit more, maybe a skill position talent there. But that's just kind of nitpicking at that point. Um, Again, this is only a draft grade. It has nothing to do with the rest of their offseason. So if you think that they should have been more active in the offseason and in free agency, this is not including that. So this is purely based on the 11 picks that they made in the draft. And I think that they did a good job there of making sure that they covered their bases, getting some roster fillers where they needed it, getting just some overall talent on the roster, as well as getting, impact players for next season. So I think an A minus is where they're going to land for me. Do you have an opinion?
No, I think that works.
All right, so that's an A minus then for the Miami Dolphins draft grade. Tomorrow, Matt comes with the Miami Marlins. Are you excited?
No,
Damn, that was very forceful.
I mean
No.
listen, after playing, I had this one wrote the show player, all right, and I signed a 13-year mega deal with the Miami Marlins, and we won 9 World Series. Actually, no, we won 10 World Series, and then I bought 9 of them in that first contract. So it was pretty incredible. So I got a soft spot for Miami. I like them as Derek Jeter owns them, which I know everyone in Miami hates him, but like, and I feel like they got a after they made the adjustments to those horrible orange and neon vomit green uniforms and stadium that they had. I liked, but they're a team that needs quite a bit. They're still very far off of being competitive. It's not going to be a pretty year, but that's all for tomorrow.
Alrighty. So, uh, again, if you want to check out the other highlight video I was showing, make sure to check that out in the description down below. Um, Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check out our Discord and our social medias, which will both be in the description below as well. I think that is going to be it for us for tonight. We will see you tomorrow again with the Miami Marlins and their preseason grades. But until then, peace.